calls with, I can't remember who was the guy, like,
Matt Roberts.
yeah,
Let's be
who
careful.
seemed really interested in that, because now
He
they're
is.
getting to the point where they definitely have resource utilization constraints, and so they should be making calculated decisions about.
Let me give a little
Yeah.
what's going on right now with
Yep.
DAFBOT. Okay, so for a while their focus was on just democratization and getting the tool in front of people.
Yeah.
Now Matt and CN, they're really interested in fixing processes. And a lot of what they're want to fix is additional duty kind of stuff, like security,
Yep.
like unit training manager, because you got 9,000 unit training managers that have a job doing it, and we even got a campaign going, not a campaign, but a project going on right now with that, with unit training managers, with a process guy that is pretty good at that stuff. So that's one that we can put right on, because there's 8,500 additional duty unit training managers that could just go away. If we automated, you know,
100% of the work.
yeah, well, close to it, yeah, I mean, because it's just,
You get a whole career field you can do
yeah,
away with.
and the same thing with security manager. I mean, I spend way too much time on my work week, at least a whole day, doing stupid stuff, extracting files.
So-
And
So is that an RPA expert sitting down with one person in that, doing that job and just
okay,
keeping
so
track and then figuring out how to program the
Alright,
stupid?
so the-
Or is that a campaign where we say, hey, anybody who has knowledge about this thing,
Yeah.
what's the stupid that we could
there
automate
you
through
go,
RPA?
there you go. Okay, so here's a little difference, right? You really, because we just had a session at Joint Base Andrews, right? Now Joe would tell you he did some stuff off his portal. I did some stuff off the portal, right? But if you're not a coder, I know it says low code, no code, but none of the projects that were there being worked on could be done by an individual without that coder's help,
Mhm.
right? So, Joe, I mean,
Fairness,
so-
that's where my mind's at.
yeah, so I do think what you're getting to is probably more, you know, what is that, again, as Bruce says, stupid, right? What is a sensor for stupid? Everybody's a sensor for stupid.
Yeah.
So what's out there in those additional duties that could be automated, right? If we just get that information, then we would connect, you know, also the community to connect the DAFBOT and UiPath folks and the process. Because when we do the road shows, I try to get the MPOs, PMs to be in the room, like we were just at Edwards a few weeks ago, right? So we had the Edwards folks, we had a bunch of process people, like 5 or 6 process people, and then there's also called the process document. There's a FM had come up with a good methodology, PDD, process design document, that basically said here's the as is, here's the to be. Did I send that? Did we talk about? I didn't share that with you yet. Probably need to share that with you. It's probably more better than in the charter thing.
Process to be.
No, the process design document.
Okay.
So FM come up with that methodology. Really, it's the methodology from the DoD Reengineering Handbook, really. So it's very similar to that. Also, another thing, AFMA, not too long ago, well, yeah, probably long ago, about, I think it was a long time ago when Doug
Time
Wiggers,
goes fast when you're having
right?
fun.
Because when Doug was still there, A1, Les Ross, Vince Gassaway, myself,
Other than I was
all
long
met
time
down
ago.
with Colonel White, Colonel Barger, and we talked about how to figure out which processes should be automated. So we got an approach for that, and I've been trying to get hold of Jim Davis and John Simpson recently and said, hey, we need to resurrect this, because that was some good work.
Someone else you may want to talk to is Sean Harrington, because he's in charge of this.
Yeah, I know.
CPI effort.
Sean's been included in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So does that give you a
Yeah,
perspective?
so a couple things. Number one is, so for RPA,
Yeah.
there, you know, the one thing is a community page. And so there's a couple components of that. One is to explain, you know, educate, you know, to like give people, you know, where, if I want to know more about RPA, where should I go? You know, what SharePoint site, you know, this
There's
is
a
that.
Mill Suite, there's
Give
training.
them a, the innovation landing page, and then we can link to
I got-
resources
yeah, we
and
got-
all the other
we got
stuff
a
without
PowerPoint
moving
presentations,
Yeah, without
we got
moving anything, we can at
links,
least give
yeah.
people a starting point. Then you're also, essentially you're starting to build a community,
Yep. Yeah.
okay, of interested people and maybe subject matter experts, and from the vaguely interested to the deep experts, right? The third thing is now we can do something like FAQs or discussions
Yeah. And
to support the community,
Yeah.
okay, and to enable people to have so that may happen in
how would we bring in like GSA? There's communities in GSA for RPA. The DoD as a whole has an RPA community. It's really there's a list
I wanna
out
table
there.
that for a second,
Okay.
And then we want to create RPA challenges.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
And then the RPA challenges means that we have to have a specific topic. And somebody in the RPA community who's gonna own this. So let's say that Jim, because you have knowledge of RPA, you're in this community, you're passionate about it, and you have a security officer role, you're standing up and saying, this is almost like solution scouting. You're not some leader with a span of control and a community yourself. You're a passion member in a community, and you're stand up and say, we could RPA the heck out of this security officer
Yep.
role, and so I'm gonna champion a campaign, and I'm gonna figure out how to connect with as many security officers as possible and say, hey, security officer roles, would you all, anybody who wants to help me identify what's the stupid that we could automate through RPA,
There you
right?
go.
Come here, okay? And this also becomes a use case, a model of a way for us to build community activity within any kind of topic, okay? The other one was what was that role? The other one?
Oh.
Training.
Training.
Unit training manager.
Unit-
UTM.
Additional duty unit training managers, I think specifically is what you're looking at, right?
Yeah.
Because there's an FSC that's a unit training manager.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But the additional duty
So,
UTM.
Unit
Yeah,
training
you're right.
manager. So
But
here's
it's
our-
automating the UTM.
So this
function.
becomes our MVP, our proof of concept of taking a community, helping organize resources, giving them a place to land, starting to identify who those community members are, giving them some resources to interact, and then beginning to build a portfolio of topic-driven RPA project spaces. Okay, and then if the RPA experts are available to help do some of this RPA work, once the community has crowdsourced ideas,
Yeah.
maybe prioritized through some selection activities, we can say, here's what the community's decided what we should do.
And
Now,
add-
I would
add
take
re-
it one step
add-
further, Jim.
Add reserve, travel pay. Yeah, what,
And that's that,
matter of fact, she's at GSA, that colonel, that's doing the reserve travel pay now. That's a good example of we're using RPA and CPI simultaneously.
okay. So,
Good job, sir.
okay.
so, right now we're building the communities, right? And what are we asking these communities to do?
Well, we're building a community workspace, but once we identify topics, we're going to ask people who aren't necessarily RPA community people, but we're going to ask people who are role specific to come in and participate in a challenge, which this challenge is
So
help us
And that's-
identify
and that's
as
the heat map of stupid.
yes.
Right, but
As-
then again, but Joe, I think you're getting a point, but then we need to connect the stupid, the doers, not the stupid doers, but the doers who are doing stupid stuff they don't wanna do anymore. Connect them to process people.
Yes, and that's what,
Yeah.
that's what I'm going is, that once this is done, right? And, because the first thing you need to do to RPA is you gotta have good maps of your process,
Right,
right?
and that's
You
what-
need a leading process.
And that's what Becky's doing down there at the travel.
Right.
Yeah. So,
And-
so yes, I don't know what that resource is, who takes the inputs from the community and organizes that and then, puts that in the can organize the inputs into RPA activities for an output. Like, we have to figure that out, what this model looks like from that perspective. But it sounds like you already have something in place for this project down here.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And that one, I mean, that was moving through, right? Isn't that moving through in there?
Yeah, but
I mean, it's
yeah,
not right, it isn't perfect.
you're right. But that's a
Things
good
we
one,
need to
that's,
do, but there's something started there already,
right, right, that's
And I
up and
think a
running.
good way to maybe treat these a little bit different in that they do an informational thing, because this is already in work and this one's already in work. This security thing, all I've ever heard anybody do is bitch about it. I've never seen anybody do anything about it.
Yeah. Yep.
But
Okay.
You hear me
So,
complain about it
is-
every damn day.
Is there-
not do anything about it, but complain about it.
Is there an opportunity in either one of these to engage the broader community and have them come in and
I think so.
participate?
That's
Yeah.
my point. There's
Okay.
already work going on. I think if they did a quick 2-minute video on saying, hey, this is stupid, right? And who wants to be part of this team to automate this, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then we link them with the 8-step, if you will.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
They get down to implementing the countermeasures and doing all that crap as a team project, then I think now I have something for the coders to code, because I have my process maps, right? I can build out, I can match them up
Coders.
with that coder, and we can build out the process maps, the logic, the conditions, and I think there's one other piece that we have to include in this for it to be successful, is we've got to have controls, right? And like a control chart. Because if you just got everything being automated, how do we know that people are gonna find a way to screw up the automation?
Yeah.
They are. We're just devious, evil people, and we will find a way to get what we want. I'm that way.
And those are being managed, so that's, I can't remember the name of the tool. What was the name of the tool that they got, the production, it's a production management tool.
But I'm saying that, like, if, for example, let's just say that they have a way to upgrade, you know, we have the logic to automatically upgrade people when all the tasks in the training records are done, that are required, they're all signed off, we can automatically RPA them to go to the skill level.
Yeah,
But
yeah, that's gonna
that's
be.
gonna get that's gonna get to the point
You
where.
really need that stuff on the end of coders and the process improvement working
And-
together for that.
And the control tools, in other words, we need to do design for Six Sigma on this RPA
Because
thing.
what's the STS and JQS look like? It is what, there's software right now that they're using to do that, right?
Right, but there's no automation, everything's manual.
Right.
I mean, they have to submit a 2096 and they gotta, they
Yeah,
gotta go all.
and they're doing all that manually, but that's what the unit training manager, additional duty folks are doing.
Right, and there's a lot of things that they do. For example, when you're getting trained, right, you come out of tech school, you have to do some career development courses, and that's a bunch of reading, and it involves, like, after each book, you gotta take a little test, and then you have to take a final test, and all that's done in one system, right? And then I've gotta go look at that data and get that data, and then I gotta go look at your training records out of another system and say, okay, all your tasks are signed off, you've got your CDCs done,
Yeah.
you've got enough time in the career field where you've gained that experience, now I can upgrade you to 5 level.
Yep.
All that stuff is known, it's just that you gotta go find it all and put it all together and keep track of it manually. And when it's all, when you met all the requirements, it's just go into the system and process it. And all that can be easily automated.
That's
but-
on mill pits, where they upgrade them.
Yeah. But my point is that we've gotta have checks and balances in there to look and see, and you come up on the naughty boy list if you should be upgraded in like 18 months.
Yeah.
And if you take it 2 years, then you're on the naughty list, and they wanna know why. What specifically, what's specifically holding you up? And have you made any progress since last time? So all these things can be automated easily, but we've gotta get the good business rules, and we gotta have good control tools. So that when things go wrong, well, we're not making everybody a 9 level, because I found some way to, Emerald Basic Johnny, who just got to the base, oh, I saw on Facebook, if I put an after my, training date, it blows up the system and gives me a 9 limit. Because people will discover that. I know I did.
All right.
Anyhow, so that's
So
pretty
this is, let's,
straightforward.
we can build this and then iterate it,
Yeah.
until we find a model that works, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, and so I think what's, not that we have to we won't over-engineer this yet, but
Today.
what's happening here too is that, so we're building a community for, there's an RPA community involved in this, there's a CPI or MPO
Yep.
community
Yep.
that's engaged in this, and then for each one of these
Yeah, there's a
these
technical
solution
area.
areas, there's a security officer
Right.
community, there's a reserve
Yeah.
travel community. I mean, that's maybe that's a pretty weak community, like that nobody's
Yeah, yeah.
passionate. That's kind of like nothing that the only passion is probably that you hate it. But this unit training manager, right? So
Yeah,
that's
UTM.
there's probably a community there, right?
Yeah.
Of like-minded people
Right.
with that responsibility. It's
Right.
like this is where
And then you gotta
You
bring
know,
in the
we're
personnel,
talking about-
because that has impacts on the personnel system.
Yeah,
Like what
we're-
the training codes are.
we're talking about trying to make the life better of a security officer or a unit training manager.
Right.
But where we get into innovation communities, it's also like, hey, did you know, how do you connect to your peers in this role across this big, gigantic, global, asynchronous, organization called the Air Force or the DoD or, and all that. And so by having one interaction with that
Wasn't me,
community,
was
we may be opening the door to saying, hey, community, there's
I
other
hope
ways
that's
that we
not
can
me.
help you innovate, problem solve, do things for your community, right? And this could be the starting point of a broader engagement with that, I don't know if that's a career field, a role, whatever
Yeah.
you call it, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
And some of those communities might take off and some of them won't. Is your phone farting? Is that what-
Yeah, I think it's not me, is it?
I thought we were more mature than that, but apparently not.
From here, it sounded like it was coming from Crystal's area.
All day long. Somebody had bubbly good.
I just looked like it. That's bad, you guys know. It's
It's
getting late.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I like this because we're engaging as many communities as we can to do this right. And now we have, in that model library, we have the processes.
Oh, we will, yeah.
And when something needs to change, we've got that starting point.
Yeah,
When
good
we
point,
find an
yeah.
error now, we're developing good behavior all along because
Put model library up there, cause that's.
A lot of this reminds me of back in the day when we had the communities of practice cops. Not the badge holders,
that's the ones you run from.
I ran too, remember, I'm married to one.
Okay. So does that wrap this conversation?
I think so.
For now?
Yeah, not exactly, what's
I
our
mean, this is a
timeframe? Okay, we can get this up and running quick, right? I mean, is that,
Well,
how quick do we
I
wanna?
think this is a good straw man.
Yep.
And
Well, it's good enough to run from.
it's a good straw man. I would suggest that we take one of those,
Yeah,
right? Go, hang the meat on it, and as we learn a little bit, we get down the road a little ways,
Mhm.
we take what we've learned and apply it to the next one,
Okay.
and run with it.
Okay.
And iterate from there. What I'm
yeah.
saying is, let's
Security
not
ones
engage
we're
all
gonna do
three.
last, cause security's a big one, that's gonna be enormous. So it's either
The training
UTM
manual's
or
not
the
gonna be
travel
easy either,
program.
But
Huh?
none of them are gonna be easy.
I know, but
to see
UTM,
effect.
I think is probably the one that's really solidified already.
I think it's pretty mature, but we don't know that because it's one small team.
Yeah, yeah,
Who might have collaborated with some people, but not
Yeah.
necessarily everyone.
yeah, he was gonna do an A3 on that, but he decided not to, so maybe we need to
On which project?
UTM,
UTM.
additional duty UTM.
Mike, I can't remember his last name, Green, no, not Green.
Yeah, and I think that's another issue is about communication, right? The career field managers and the senior leadership. I think another campaign that we could start to try to figure out how to feather in here, another thorn in our side is the career field managers. Because where does that accountability stuff of how they're helping get, what
Well,
are
there
they
is a career
working
field
on?
manager for education training,
Right,
right?
but we have heard, and we've repeatedly seen it the past 2 years, that they don't communicate with us. They're not helping get some of the things that are in the innovation and improvement pipeline into the programs, especially AETC. So what are the accountability steps?
Well, the unit training manager is working with his career field manager, so that's good.
That he's
Yeah,
one of the
one good
only good examples that I know about. But at the career field managers, I guess I'm thinking of a different use case, but we could do some applicability in here is as an accountability or a way to tie in another community, because another community that we could really explode is the career field managers community. So
Yeah.
what are you guys working on? And then how did these things start getting synthesized together and feeding in breadcrumbs through the new applications?
I think you're too broad. I think we, each career field is potentially a target
Yes.
of opportunity. And so once we get a little bit of a handle on this, we have a working model to demonstrate, or
Yeah, so I'm
or
thinking
whether
long
this
term.
succeeds or fails, it's still
Right.
a model.
Yeah.
And then out of all those,
The data
160
regardless
career
on
fields,
that.
we need to go, hey, which one of you career fields wants to be the first, second, third to, like, because there's someone who probably passionately care
Yeah.
about making their career field awesome and doing stuff, and there's some who probably are like close to retirement, could care less. And so out of 160 some odd, there's gonna be some eager targets of opportunity. So we just have to, we had
Yeah.
to hunt for them. We had to research
There's
them.
I'm not saying we don't do this, but I'm saying as we evolve, I think we can use campaigns to reach out to commanders and say, where is your ass pain coming from,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
right? It's coming from the personnel.
Yeah. Or you could say,
process
what career fields are you struggling with? Or, or we could have a pain campaign and focus on career fields, and then maybe the data from a number of people saying that we can see that these, certain career fields are causing more pain than others. And that gives us the ability to go and,
That's where I wanna go,
Yeah.
because I think you're gonna have the eager beavers, right, that are gonna wanna do this.
Yep.
And you're gonna have the ones that need to, and are
Yeah.
gonna resist at
Yeah, yeah.
all costs.
yeah.
But if we bring data in that says, hey,
Yeah.
across the Air Force, for example, does anybody believe that the hiring process works well?
No.
Yeah.
Okay,
I just got my $9,000 taxes from 2021 back yesterday because I have an end process.
Really?
Yeah.
That did take a while, the taxes.
Yeah, because
So-
our front office and end processing screwed up my
So-
indoctrination, yeah.
so back on target.
Mhm.
Is anybody doing anything to fix it? No.
No.
Right? Why? Because if I go to the office that does it, they say, my process is perfect. It only
Yeah.
takes me 30 days. And it, right? And then it only takes me 30 days, and it only takes me 30 days, and it only takes me 30 days. But end to end, it's broke.
Oh, yeah.
So if we gather that data on the end-to-end brokenness, where the commanders are feeling the pain in their mission, and we give it to the functional, now he doesn't have a choice but to fix it. And I think that's how we leverage I'm gonna say the resistors. We put them between a rock and a hard place and see what comes out of that. But we've gotta have this figured out from the ones that wanna do it, because there's gonna be a lot of pain going through this process. But if we nail this down, we take it from the straw man to the full-blown thing. Now, as we get the input, because these resistors are gonna turn around and say, okay, oh, look, didn't work. The first time they, oh, you gotta have a CPI guy. We don't have one, didn't work. We're done. General, didn't work. That's exactly what's gonna happen.
Just looking for a reason to fail.
We've got to master this part, right, and get this down with 4 or 5 good stories that we can have and have good processes. Because when we get to those resistors, they are gonna punch us in the face every time something doesn't go right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And they're gonna go to general whoever, and they're gonna whine and complain, and they're gonna try to kill it.
Bad
Because they don't
news
wanna,
spreads faster
nobody
than
wants to
good news.
lose, nobody wants to lose the manpower. Nobody wants to lose resources.
Yeah, we're just really saying, no, this.
And I'm surprised that the UTM guy, functional, is even really considering this, because ultimately, it could take his AFSC down to
Yeah,
a
but-
handful of Air Force-wide people.
I don't know, I think it's the additional duty that'll be reduced
If
more than
anything,
anything.
yeah.
He's still gonna have, but yeah, I think ultimately, as we go through this, you probably should, right? I mean,
Yes.
If you automate some of this stuff, yeah.
If an additional duty guy's work is being automated, guess what? Anybody below the base is also
Yeah.
automated, right?
Yeah,
Because that's what they're charged
because a
with.
lot of their work is managing the additional duty people,
Dude,
right? The primary unit training managers has to have, you can't have the unit training managers doing unit training without them having some infrastructure to manage, some overhead to manage the UTMs of the 8,000 people,
y-
right?
yes, but
So I mean,
my,
so there's some small at least,
right.
okay,
but-
not much.
No, when I was an additional duty UTM. No, and there was a, no kidding, drop dead, you will have your report to me by, your signed commanders report to me by the 5th of every month.
Okay,
Right.
So then I just
okay.
backed it up.
And there's clear processes on things that have to happen as the UTM, right? And if that work's done by additional duty people, the
Yeah, I was
exact
additional duty, I was
same
out
process,
high. Mhm.
right? The exact same person,
Yeah.
full-time, whose AFSC it is doing the exact same thing she's doing. They're just doing it for
Larger
a larger
scale.
squad.
Yeah, they're doing it for
Yeah,
the wing.
okay.
Or the
All right.
group.
Where the
They're moving
UTM's
up to
doing
the
it for
groups
a
and the
small
wings,
group.
right? And they're responsible for overall, the overall thing.
So you're right, so some of their work would go away.
So some of their work could potentially go away,
Yeah,
but they've got to have, that skill set's gotta evolve, and yes, I still need to understand training.
Yeah.
I understand I still have to be the master of the process, but I also have to have the ability to
Yeah.
monitor my controls and adjust my RPAs.
I think that's a good thing about controls, right? So the RPA can be building their process controls. Yeah, absolutely.
Really quickly, DoD, if it's a Air Force led initiative,
Mhm.
your crowd vector license is okay
That's
with
good.
anybody with a
Good.
CAC, the DoD CAC
Good.
logging in and accessing the campaign.
Alright.
So like we're doing stuff with AFSOC and
That's DOD
people-
CAC, not
DoD CAC.
GSA
Yep.
or OPM or
Yep. So
not federal.
Yep, exactly. So AFSOC, if they have Navy, Marines, Army,
Yeah.
any of that can be logging in and participating in their campaigns. And we're currently running a pilot for an OSD one that we're gonna host on the game platform. So yes, GSA that I am aware of, we don't have the login connector with whatever their government login thing is. They would have to be under contract, and we would have to
We have
find
a
a
federal
solution.
RPA consortium, basically, of different,
Yep.
DOD and
But
non-DOD.
this gives us an I mean, if they see value in what you're doing, there's theoretically a limit to setting up a contract with them, opening up a platform, and then as Jan was saying, we can actually, because if they're hosting the same environment, we can actually connect these platforms together. We can actually make them interoperate and talk to each other and
Okay.
stuff like that. It's just like, but potentially we have an Army contract that might spin up, and we would be, well, but again, that's all in the DoD. So yeah, outside of the DoD,
Yeah.
so, yeah, but, yeah,
Good, thank you.
yeah.
So we just need to get moving.
If the Air Force gave us a requirement where GSA people could log into the Air Force platform, and if we had a contract with GSA, we would find a solution for that. But that's not a requirement today, unfunded requirement.
Okay, let's think about something. What mission area is this?
Business mission area. Business mission area. Business mission area.
What has Mr. Lombardi been asking for?
Business mission areas.
Okay.
That's why, ultimately, Joe, that's what I've been telling them already,
Right.
is that these
So-
things are queuing up.
So let's
Yeah.
follow this down the road, right? So we're gonna create a plan, with milestones.
Yeah.
To do these 3 things as a test base,
Right.
right, over the next X number of months, days, minutes, right? This can't fail. So we need to be very thoughtful and deliberate when we go home tonight to think through which one is gonna be easier to
Yeah,
do,
to prioritize.
this one or this one. Because I don't know that the security one,
Yeah.
you know,
And
I
I'm
didn't
not-
label that one yet.
So I'm,
That was a real-
Joe, I mean,
review
when you
job.
say easy instead of you know,
I don't
think-
mean easy
yeah, I know,
as,
but,
yeah.
but I think which one has motivation out there for willingness, right? From a willingness perspective, which
Has a
one?
more likelihood of succeeding.
Who would stick to it until it's
Right.
done?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, the last thing I wanna do is what's gonna get our throats cut,
Yeah.
not punched, is when we go up and say, okay, we're gonna try this. And we come back and say, well, they weren't really interested, so we're gonna try this one.
Well, it's okay.
We're not really
Yeah,
interested.
I need to retire at some point.
And we do want somebody who's gonna be resilient and know that they're an early adopter and deal with the crap that goes with
He
it.
already does,
Okay.
and I think they already do,
Okay.
right, Jim?
Yeah.
So, I think either one of those two would be a good start.
The reserve pay one
I get Joe's finger.
though, I'm
That
not
one?
saying, as far as
No, not
what
that
might be
one.
easier to push. Wouldn't the reserve pay one kind of be a little harder to, cause there's
Maybe.
a lot of
Yeah.
variables, and it gets kind of.
Yeah, but that's,
UTM has matured a little bit, but the reserve pay, they're on their way. I don't know that
yeah, cause they're
they're not ready to automate yet.
Yeah, well, supposedly they're already starting to build their systems connected to DTS.
Right. That's why I'm saying they're not ready to automate yet, because we don't need to automate that
Right.
unless it's gonna help them to do that, right? And that's a slightly different thing.
But mapping the
really.
process is what she's doing right now.
Right. Right, but I think these guys are ready to start really mapping processes.
I think so, they're pretty mature, I think
Yeah.
that might be the best one to go for.
All right,
Okay.
we good?
I think so, from an ecosystem perspective too, that's gonna be
Yeah, so
our penetration.
what we need from Jim is to think through that date and coordinate, and connect with them and get those timelines and that
Yep.
commitment.
It's
But
not
then,
just Jim though, because,
but well, hold on, he's the one going to the RPA roadshows, connecting, so I need him to make that initial connection and get that commitment of yes, so then we can together build that plan, because
It's-
those dates have
It's
been
not
our.
that you need it, it's that we need it, I think Joe's just trying to say.
Okay, well, so,
That's,
whatever, so we owe those dates and that timeline to Mr. Lombardi in about, what, 2 weeks?
yep,
So, can we have those conversations with the UTMs?
he already has the connection.
I know he already does, but he needs to have those connections, the follow-on and the commitment,
Right.
yep.
like, no later than next week to have those dates, so we can type that into that report.
And once we get the initial buy-in, then we've got to start developing all of this stuff, right, in the campaign and all that other
Yeah.
kind of crap, right? So, but that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying, the milestone initially is, hey, I, like Crystal said, we've touched base with the.
Try to identify, connect,
you-
set it up, but.
With the career field manager, right? And we gotta build the campaign by the next day. The next day, we'll have the CPI guys on board mapping processes, and the next day, we'll have the solution in place, and the next day, we'll have the RPAs written, and, you know, that's the kind of milestone thing that I think we could come up with, right? And then we take that and we replicate it in the next one. That's what Mr. Lombardi's gonna wanna see.
Yeah.
We don't have to wait to the end, but we can begin to replicate. But we've gotta have the resources in place. Let's not, you know,
Yeah,
push that until we know. And the other thing that I would say is, we've gotta be able to collect data within the system to educate us on the next one,
yeah,
right? I mean, we wanna make data-based decisions, or data-driven decisions.
Yeah.
We've gotta think through what information we need, right, to see how we can replicate better the next time. And I'm not sure my brain isn't there yet, cause I don't understand, and I'm gonna rely on Greg. Cause my
well, I
brain
think
doesn't
we are gonna
understand
rely
all
on
that
Greg for
stuff.
that, yeah. Yeah,
Alright, are we good here?
Yes.
Can I erase this?
I believe so.
Do we have a plan on what that looks like, or do we need a plan?
I got it.
Is there anything you need from us in the next week to make any of this happen?
We're gonna set up, we're gonna come up with a design for this, initial
Yeah.
design concept for this.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
there you go.
For-
Do you have a
for
picture of that?
This thing.
I
Oh,
do.
yeah.
Okay, cool.
I think all
It's
of us
got my
do.
finger in it. It's
This
not
one?
on my nose.
Joe's finger.
You can edit that out.
Pucker up, baby.
And what was Mill Street on there for? What was your thinking there?
Mill Suite is just another community where,
It's community of practice.
yeah, for RPA, and it's really outdated and.
We're looking at
I've
that.
seen Mill Street, but like when you put it on there, what's the?
Well,
I'm
just-
still don't
Just
understanding
cause,
like why
'cause
you
you
put it on
started
there.
getting links, are you using the word links?
Yeah.
Mill Suite's got links on, DOD's got links, GSA.
Okay.
On
To
who-
other resources.
Yeah, other
and-
communities
okay,
of practice.
okay, yeah.
Mill Suite particularly, if you want to go ahead and get training, or see examples of
Yeah.
RPA things that have been automated, I got a whole list, and it's in a freaking, Excel sheet, so it's really,
Yeah.
come on, man, yeah.
So again, this gets back to, from a game community perspective, sometimes we can move that content into game. Sometimes, or at least create a glossary, a directory, some way to know that all this stuff in different places,
Yeah.
help people navigate that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's what the
Get a link to the
community-
SharePoint,
right.
get links to Mill Street, like all that stuff. Okay.
And I would say that's gotta be one of my priorities real quick, in our flight plan.
As a side
In our
question,
flight plan, it's gotta be one of our immediate priorities, building a community. Cause that's what we're doing. We're building a community around RPA. So, we're getting started on building a community.
You already have a community on RPA though, right?
Yeah. But we're putting,
Yeah.
right,
We need to build the community that's gonna basically apply RPA, right,
cause
to,
the Mill Suite is inadequate. There's not much there. It's not up to date. There's really, the existing communities of practice just.
Mill Suite was good 15 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But now we got this tool that we a lot better.
Well, we even have SharePoint. The only thing,
Yeah.
the only thing I don't like about SharePoint is,
Mill Suite is not SharePoint?
no, looks like a custom app.
Okay.
I think it was
Maybe it
based in
was-
SharePoint a few versions ago. I don't know what it is anymore.
SharePoint .5.
Yeah, yeah, it's in,
Wow.
yeah, but anyway, that's kind of irrelevant, but the issue that I have with SharePoint is that if I'm like the healthcare folks over in DHA,
Yeah.
getting them into our Air Force
Yeah.
SharePoint, is it easy?
But they can get in our,
If you add a person to a team channel or a meeting, right? Or anyone else external to the Air Force, you don't get file share, you lose a lot of capabilities in teams. And I don't
Okay.
understand that. So if I wanna have a meeting with an Army guy, he's not in the Air Force team, so I lose a lot of capability. They're still us, if you will. They wear a different uniform. I understand it with like outside, agencies, but I don't understand it within the DoD. They all ought to be,
you would think, right?
yeah.
It's just the way that their IT set everything up, because even with the most recent class I had to take, the course of familiarization, they had given me access to the Army's
Yes.
Teams site, and I had to flip between the two.
And even then, you're limited to what you can do in their own site.
Yeah. See with OSD, I have to go for their campaign stuff, I have to join their teams, switch
Yeah.
environments, right?
Yeah.
Kind of a pain.
It is, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Like, it is only one click, go up there, click, and it switches over, but you don't get notifications, right? You lose all that.
well, and vice versa, when I was sitting in the class, we had notifications coming through on our team's
Okay.
page, I didn't realize it.
Crystal?
So I flipped back and I was like, oh.
Are you in a position to pull up that briefing deck
Yes,
from Spark Chain?
yes. Y'all, you guys stretch your legs, get your blood flowing, and then I'll,
Yeah.
pull that up.
Who's got the fob?
Right there on the desk.
Where?